the men wouldn't stop standing too close. He smiled like they shared a secret she couldn't remember agreeing to, and when she stepped aside, he followed, shadow stitched to her heels. She glanced at the door, then at her phone. No missed calls, no excuses left. Just as she opened her mouth to ask for help, a calm voice cut through the noise like a steady hand on her shoulder. "Sorry I'm late," the stranger said, warm and convincing. Traffic was awful. He slid into the space beside her as if it had always been his, and for a heartbeat, the room believed him. She did too. She had no idea that the man pretending to be her date was a single dad counting bus fare in his head. And he had no idea the woman he was rescuing ran a company big enough to buy the building they stood in. Earlier that evening, the cafe buzzed with low music and the clink of cups, the kind of place that made loneliness feel dressed up as freedom. She'd chosen it on purpose, neutral ground, a corner table, an early exit planned. Power, she'd learned, could be heavy. Titles followed her like a coat she couldn't hang up. Tonight she wanted to be invisible. The men who approached her seemed harmless at first, too friendly, too insistent, asking questions that leaned closer than manners allowed. She tried polite refusals, then firmer ones. He laughed them off. Her heartbeat found a quicker rhythm. She scanned the room for staff, for anyone, and that's when she saw him, a tired-looking man at the counter, jacket worn at the elbows, eyes kind but guarded. He noticed her glance, then the stranger's posture, the way her shoulders curled inward. He hesitated, because intervening had consequences, because courage always does. Then he moved out. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her, just offered a truth-shaped lie and stood like a wall. "You ready?" he asked, pitching his voice to intimacy without possession. The other man bristled, muttered something about a misunderstanding, and melted away, embarrassed by witnesses. Relief flooded her so fast it made her dizzy. "Thank you," she breathed. "I didn't know what to do." He shrugged, suddenly shy. The act finished. "Happens to my sister," he said. Didn't feel right to ignore. They talked, at first only to smooth the awkwardness. His name was Adam. He had a daughter who loved pancakes shaped like animals. He worked 2 jobs and measured success in quiet mornings when the bus was on time. She told him her name and left the rest unsaid. She asked about his day. He asked if she was okay now. The cafe lights softened, the world narrowed to 2 people who'd found a pause together. The hook settled deeper when she realized she didn't want the pause to end. They ordered coffee. Then another. Conversation loosened the knots in her chest she hadn't known were there. He listened like listening was a skill he'd practiced, not a courtesy he offered. When the bill came, he reached for it out of habit and stopped himself, embarrassed. She smiled and waved it away. Outside, the night air cooled their faces. "Walk you to your car," he offered, protective without pressure. She nodded. Before they parted, she asked, casual as she could make it, "Would you want to do this again?" He hesitated, thinking of schedules and promises and the math of rent. "I'd like that," he said anyway. He went home to his daughter's sleeping form and a kitchen sink full of dishes, replaying the moment like a song he couldn't stop humming. The next time they met, he almost didn't come. His babysitter canceled. His phone buzzed with apologies and panic. He typed a message, then erased it, pride wrestling practicality. When he arrived late, breathless and flustered, she was already there, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled, laughing with the server about a spilled sugar packet. She didn't scold. She didn't sigh. She asked about his daughter, and something inside him unclenched. Over weeks, their meetings stitched themselves into a routine. He learned she liked her tea too strong and her mornings quiet. She learned he fixed things with patience, not tools, and that he carried guilt like a pocket stone, heavy but grounding. He never asked what she did for work beyond busy. She never corrected him when he guessed wrong. The second hook came quietly, disguised as a problem. Adam's car died on a rain-slick street, and he called her, embarrassed again, voice tight. She showed up in a car that hummed instead of rattled, rain beating on paint that reflected the streetlights like stars. He noticed, finally noticing. "You never told me," he said, half joking. She smiled, a line of truth forming at the edge. "I didn't think it mattered." It mattered now. Invitations followed, meetings she took on the phone, assistants who called her by a title she hadn't shared. The air between them shifted, thick with questions neither wanted to ask because answers can break delicate things. When the truth came, it arrived without drama, just clarity. She invited him to lunch near her office. The building rose clean and glassed, a city inside itself. Faces changed when she entered. Doors opened. Adam stood straighter, then smaller. She didn't rush him. She explained who she was, what she built, how lonely it could be at the top. "I like being just me with you," she said. He nodded, the ache of old fears waking up, of not being enough, of the invisible lines class draws through lives. "I don't fit here," he said, not unkindly. She looked at him like he was exactly where he belonged. "You fit with me," she replied. "If you want to." The challenge wasn't money or status, it was trust. He worried about being a project, a charity, a story she'd outgrow. She worried about power tilting their balance. They argued once, honestly, about what independence meant. Then they listened. He kept his jobs. She stopped hiding. They set boundaries like gardeners set fences, to protect what grows. When a news article spotted them together and spun a headline, she refused to correct it until he said he was ready. When his daughter asked why people stared, he answered simply, because kindness makes noise. On a clear afternoon months later, the café hosted a fundraiser. The same corner table waited. A man tried to sit too close to a woman he didn't know. Before fear could rise, Adam stood, steady as ever. "She's with me," he said, voice calm. The men moved on. The woman smiled at Adam, gratitude mirrored by pride. She squeezed his hand, not as a CEO or a savior, but as a partner who had been seen at her most vulnerable and chosen anyway. The story ends where it began, with a choice made in a moment that could have passed unnoticed. He chose to step in. She chose to trust. The world didn't change because of who they were on paper, but because of what they did when it mattered. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't revealing your power, it's using it to make room for someone else.